Morning coffee. So this happened about 3 years ago, and I still get chills from it now. I used to live in a small town outside of New York. This was the kind of town where everybody knew everybody. I live with my parents and my younger sister. My parents don't drink coffee, so there's no reason for them to have a coffee machine, but I enjoy drinking it. So one morning, I had tickets to go see Les Miserables with a friend in downtown Manhattan, and I had this long drive in front of me, so I wanted to get a cup of coffee for the garage station. This was about 8:30 a.m. I walked in, and the first thing I noticed was the eeriness of the whole garage at the time. I got my cup of coffee and was just walking to my car when I heard sort of like a loud whisper from beneath my car saying, "Hey, hey lady, hey." And by now I'm kind of creeped out because first of all, it's quite early in the morning, and second of all, I could now see someone under my car. It was a middle-aged man looking quite rough, and he had specs and a pencil mustache. I didn't really know what to do because I was afraid of walking to my car and getting close to the man. By now, he was getting out from underneath and walking towards me. So I sped up a bit back to the store, and he followed me sort of jogging. I ran into the store and went straight for the back, but still in view from the lady at the cash register. The guy walks in, spots me, and starts walking towards me, so I turn the other way just to make sure he is actually following me, and by the time I get back outside, he is already turning the handle to walk out. In panic mode, I drop my coffee, run to my car, get in, and drive off. From my mirror, I can see this guy running after my car, so I turn the left onto the highway. As soon as I calm down, I get my phone and call my mom. I tell her everything that happened, and she says it was probably just some druggie. So guy with pencil mustache, let's not meet again. Old couple in a coffee shop. So about a year or maybe 2 years ago, I had my mom drive me to our local Starbucks so I can spend a couple hours in there working on my laptop in an attempt to get out of the house. I've been there a fair few times, and it was about 10 minutes from our house, so my mom had no problem dropping me off. Now, at the time, I was about to turn 19, but I look fairly young for my age, which makes this whole encounter weirder. So most of that afternoon I sat there, not really engaging with anyone, until this elderly couple, I'd say in their 60s or 70s, walks in and sits at the table in front of me. After a few minutes, the man walks to the counter to order drinks, and the woman turns around to ask me how to connect to the Wi-Fi. So, as the nice person I am, I explain how to connect politely, and she thanks me, and I think nothing of it and go back to my seat. Then, the man comes back with 3 coffee mugs, speaks quietly to the woman. Then the woman turns around and insists that I take this coffee because they ordered one too many. I keep up a polite front, but in my head, I'm just thinking about all the murder shows I've watched, and how by the book this is how it is, but I'm not feeling too scared yet. I take the coffee and thank them, but I don't drink it. They leave me alone for a little while longer, but eventually strike up a conversation with me again. I play along, mostly because I know my mother is coming, since we agreed I'd be there for about 2 hours, and they start talking about how great young people are, and how I should join them for wine at their rental mansion they have in the town. I laugh and explain that wouldn't be appropriate because I was underage, and they make some joke about how I could just drink soda. At this point, I'm amazed my jaw wasn't hitting the floor because they were clearly pulling some sort of game with me, and it was so obvious and creepy. The man starts to tell me how he was a famous ski sportsman or some baloney, and the woman insists I must visit them, and how they would like my number to call. I lie and say I don't have a phone, but they didn't push it. Instead, the woman said she'd write down her address and number, so I gave her my record journal, and she began writing her information. During this, my mom walked in and immediately sensed the creepiness. She spoke to the couple, feigning polite conversation while using her "I know what you're up to" voice, and I was pleased to see how uncomfortable they suddenly became. We left shortly after that, and though I had her information, I never really did anything with it. My mom looked them up online, but couldn't find anything on them. I still have that Recca journal, and haven't done more than 3 pages because of that creepy encounter. I mean, when do 60 and 70-year-olds and 19-year-olds ever have anything in common to where they have to drink together? Also, I cannot believe that they even tried that whole extra drink thing. I mean, I don't see why they would have tried to drug me in a public place, but either way, it was skeevy. Serial Barista Creeper. Hey all, joined Reddit just for this. First post, yada yada yada. Here's the first of my 2 creepiest let's not meet encounters. This happened a few years ago when I was about 23. I'm 5'7", female, kinda skinny if that matters. I was working at this little bakery in my hometown, paid okay, lovely clientele. So there was a coffee shop in the same shopping center. The center was L-shaped, the cafe in the foot of the L, the bakery towards the middle of the long part. I knew the 2 girls who worked in the cafe super sweet. The bakery also served tea, and the cafe had sandwiches, so we referred customers to each other all the time. So on the day in question, I pulled into the parking lot and noticed the cafe was dark. Weird, as the cafe opened way earlier than the bakery, and the owner was a total stickler for attendance. There was also a dark, expensive-looking car parked in front, probably one of their loyal customers, just as curious about them being closed as me. I shrugged it off and set to opening the bakery. So, I'm going through the morning's preparations, and not 10 minutes after, I flip the open sign, the doorbell tinkles. This young guy with dark, kinda messy hair walked in. He was dressed sort of business casual. He had on a black shirt and pants, but a vivid green tie. Smelled like Patrick Bateman. He walks up to the counter, and I try to smile, like my spidey sense isn't tingling. The guy was just off, even the way he walked up, like only the counter was stopping him from walking right into me. I gave him the rote bakery greeting. "So, what'll you have?" he said. "I bet you like to show me those tits." I can't manage anything better than, excuse me? He nods and launches into a tirade of the filthiest bullshit I've ever heard in one place, telling me to show him my tits, saying I had fat tits, and even more vile shit I'm still trying to block out. My mind is just in fragments. It's literally the last thing I'd expect to hear that morning. I somehow managed to get out that he wasn't allowed to speak like that, and that I would have to get my manager. The guy started mocking me like a grade schooler, doing a whiny imitation of my voice and throwing my words back at me. I threatened to call the cops. He laughed. All this time, I'm trying to put as much distance between myself and the guy as I can, scared he was going to grab me across the counter. We didn't really have a back room per se, more like a little alcove with a phone and filing cabinet. My phone was still beneath the counter, and I sure as hell wasn't going back for it. I picked up the landline receiver and hit 9. Suddenly, the guy's voice drops. He says, "You don't put that down right this second? I'm coming over there." My head freezes. My finger doesn't. By the time I hit 1, he dashes out the door and hops in the expensive car and peels out of there. I manage not to dissolve into tears as I describe the situation to the operator. She agrees to send a squad car. I hang up and dial my manager, who is super supportive and gets there before the cops do. As a small, poor bakery, we only have a fake security camera as a deterrent, so they only have my description of the guy to go on. As they take my statement, I remark that, gee, it sure was weird that the cafe wasn't open when I got there. Could we check in with them? The girls were terrified. Turns out, that my close encounter of the creep kinda was an everyday nightmare for them. The guy had been going there for months, saying the creepiest, violently sexual shit to those poor sweet girls. In that fit of desperation, they had locked the door and shut off the lights when they saw him drive up that morning, praying that he would go away. They hadn't reported it because they were afraid of what would happen. One girl was under 18, the other was kind of a recent immigrant, so they didn't feel like making waves. And they thought it would all be blamed on them. The owner of the cafe was this Russian woman who hated everyone prettier and younger than her, so no support on that front. In the end, I don't think anything came of it. It took a long time for me to be comfortable at work again, and the girls quit not long after that incident. So, creepy barista harasser, let's not meet, unless you want me to go all mama bear on your ass for what you did to my girls.